I'm about to get attacked by a cat, so I'm not sure whether I should read this or wait. I'm going to read it. Showing your support to us is as easy as making coffee. Showing your support... You done? Showing your support to us is as easy... This cat flap was a bad idea.
Hello and welcome, or welcome back.
Thanks for joining us for another episode.
I'm James Giffins.
And I am Malcolm Childs, and we are just making conversation.
With more special guests this time, the awe-inspiring Jon Hayward, or better known as the Scale Model Medic. Malcolm's gushing.
Yes, a big fan of his. From musty boxes to the new releases and everything in between, we are going to just make conversation.
Remember, there are other podcasts you can listen to if you think this one's shit.
Head to modelpodcasts.com for all the links, or join a subreddit called Model Podcasts. That's r/Model Podcasts on Reddit.
If you've enjoyed our podcast even a tiny bit, consider leaving a 5-star review, as it promotes the podcast to more people to enjoy.
Showing your support to us is as easy as making a coffee. In fact, why not go over to buymeacoffee.com JMC Podcasts and do just that. Your support
Will help
go towards making the
podcast and its
content
just
that
little
bit better. So silly. In this episode, we will be just making conversation with Jon Hayward, the amazing scale model medic, as he is known on YouTube. A true inspiration for many new aspiring model makers.
What makes someone want to use the wonders of the media to inspire and teach those that want to watch model making? Teaching those techniques and skills we all crave to have in a simple, non-fussy way.
What is the inspiration behind those instructional videos? And will he be making any more? With different genres of the hobby, from locomotive weathering to warhammer chipping, just where does his true focus lay?
Finding time to deliver a YouTuber's experience of the scale model world is a task not to be underestimated. Balancing between work, life and loved ones is a full-time job in itself.
The influencers, the people behind the curtain, our favourite YouTube channels, do they know just how much of an impact they have on us, the viewer, and our hobby? You're the reason that I got back into model making, so I just wanted to make sure you were completely aware of that, and everybody was aware of that who was listening today. So I'm really, really excited that you are on and are daft enough to join us on this podcast. Mm-hmm. And thank you very much for doing those videos, because it had inspired me completely. And was that your intention?
Yeah, I think so. Way back when, I just had this desire to make these videos to share knowledge that I found difficult to pick up myself when I started. And I carried it on from there. I just expanded really from simple videos, technique by technique, to just making a couple of series of whole models. And yeah, just trying to help people really get started and get going in the hobby.
Yeah, because they are instructional videos, aren't they? On and quite clipped on different things. They're not long videos, and you're quite focused on the things that you're doing.
It's almost like a bit of a sort of a personal mantra to have just all content, not do the filler stuff, not try and jump in front of the camera and bombard with opinions or any of the other filler, just to do solid modeling content, just 100%.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, that comes across, and it's very useful for the people who are watching it and looking up for inspiration. And I think what brought it home for me was how simple it was to do. You know, these kind of very high level, what I thought at the time, very high level skill requiring techniques were actually quite simple if you follow your little step by steps.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that at least one person's managed to find some use for them. That's that's a start, I suppose.
Everyone else hates them, but
yeah, that's what I'm still getting hate mail about that Millennium Falcon to this day.
Are you really?
The Falcon went down pretty well actually, but it was about a year before they re-released, the really good high detail Falcon. I started getting comments saying, "Why don't you just build the Bandai one?" Which wasn't out at the time, but people don't look at the date under the video. The Falcons at the time, it was like 500 quid for a fine molds one off eBay. And then they've got this big toy one that you could use as a starting point. So I just did it. And it was never meant to be really that involved, but I just got carried away with it. Star Wars stuff is like that. It's great for weathering on because you can't really do it wrong because it's not real. So who's to say that bit wouldn't rust or that bit wouldn't end up badly damaged? And it's a good place to mess around with different techniques if you want to get into weathering. Going back to what you said about how simple the techniques are, there's a lot of stuff in there from a long time ago that is still doing the rounds now, such as the raw oil paints, grinding it in. That's got itself a fancy modelling name now and call it oil paint rendering, OPR, because modelers love a cool name and a bit of an acronym. Yeah. But you can go back there. I mean, it's a really old video now, but there I am just grinding oils onto the model. And it's not difficult at all to do. It's just once you get the hang of it, it's fine.
I think that's the problem, isn't it, with a lot of techniques, is that for a new person coming to the hobby, they look at a finished model and go, I just don't know how they did that. I haven't got a clue. And then, like you say, they start using terminology like OPR and filters, and it just completely confuses people. I think that's one of the best things from your videos is you keep the terminology really simple, really basic.
Back when I started, it was exactly the same. The only difference was there wasn't YouTube around to actually tell you this stuff. I sort of cut my teeth with books and DVDs, which was what you had back then. And color modulation was a big thing that came out with this fancy name. And then when you actually watched the DVD that Mick put out, you realise it was just shading with the airbrush, just not painting all of the dark colour underneath. And I think it's a relatively simple principle to grasp. But if you just read the word colour modulation, you're going to be off to a loser from the start. So yeah, that was the sort of thing that got me going, really, was let's do this simply, easily, just with the model in front of me. Also,
you're using very basic products as well, off the shelf stuff. The starter kit one you did with the Jaguar recently. Yeah, you're using the paint out of the box. That new paint that's in the starter sets, that's absolutely perfectly fine to use. It's good paint. It used to be a while back awful paint that you got with the starter kits, but they've done something to it now, and it's absolutely bang on. It works perfectly.
The second generation that they're doing now for the acrylic paints.
I've not used the new Humbrol acrylics yet, so it could be. It seems like it's almost like a concentrated paste that's in the pot. There's something very different about it. Used to be a concentrated paste in the old starter kits because it had all dried up, but now it seems a bit more intentional. Everything you see on those Airfix videos is 100% done with the starter set.
Yeah, well, that green is amazing.
Came out nice. Would have been nice to try and airbrush it at the same time with a model that small, masking and everything else. I'm no car modeler, so I was happy with it, and so was Dale at Airfix.
Obviously, the new series you've been doing just recently about the starter kits, was that something in which Airfix approached you, or was it something in which you wanted to do?
Airfix got back in touch with me, which was nice. I'd not had any dealings with Humbrol for sort of 10 years, really. When Dale left the business, we carried on for a little bit. It all just sort of stopped because Hornby made massive changes to the marketing team. And then I just kind of disappeared. Do you know that Homer Simpson gif where he disappears into the hedgerow?
Yeah.
That was me backing away from all the comments. That's where it all it stopped, and then out of the blue, in really sad circumstances, I might add, Dale came back to the business, and that meant if he asked me, I would have gone back to the business straight away because Dale's a great guy, and that's what happened.
You've obviously got more to come in that series?
Yeah, I've got 2 more to do, tucked away behind me.
How's that gone down? Because obviously you've gone away from that for a little period. Have you picked up much feedback?
I always look at the comments because it's not my channel, so I can't delete the bad ones. So I have to keep an eye on them. But so far, the comments have been really positive. They've been taken in the spirit that they're intended. I can't say the same about the old Airfix starter set video I did, the one where I couldn't use any tools at all.
Wow.
And had to twist the parts off the sprue, and I had to sit by and watch myself be torn to pieces by the baying mob on YouTube. Yeah, that was the brief that I had to make the video, and I made the video.
I'm aware of some comments. Malcolm and I were talking about this before he joined us. But the one thing that impressed me by doing that and not using tools and all that sort of stuff, and just taking it off the sprue, isn't that the sort of thing that a youngster would do once they've opened their gift at Christmas, to just start pulling it apart and sticking it together? Why can't you have an adult do that in the video and say, well, this is one way you can do it? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Not everybody's got the sort of toolkits that we have lying around, and Airfix know their audience. And when you've got people buying starter sets from the likes of museums and visitor attractions, which you always see the red boxes when you go through to the gift shop, if someone's picked up an Airfix starter kit, the chances are when they get home, they won't have a set of cutters on the worktop at home and a nice set of ultimate sanders and all the other filler, everything that you can throw at a kit these days. They're going to just tear it apart like a caveman and then stick it together, probably trying to use the Humbrol poly cement straight from the tube, and they're going to get it everywhere. And then that's the end of their modelling career when they look at that when it's finished. They won't do it again.
Yeah, we may have had a bad experience doing it, and your video would certainly help them if they happen to type it in.
I hope so, and that's what Airfix intend with it. It's a form of marketing by education, by trying to get people to stay in the hobby rather than just buy one kit, mess it up and move on.
We talked about modelling tools and all that sort of stuff in one of our episodes way back when. And we were talking about tools that we started with in the hobby. And my file was my mum's nail file. She didn't know I had it, but that's what I used. And I used a letter opener to open my pots of paint.
The nail files, they were revolutionary at the time, to see these sponges that conform to the surface like they were made for modelling. But the truth of the matter is they're made to curve around nails. And companies have took the principle and applied it to different shapes and things. The ultimate modelling sanders being a prime example. They've got these shapes which are helpful for modellers, but that product in general started life as a thing for nails. It's the same with so much else. The cutters from the Humbrol tool set, for example, will look familiar to any electrician. A beginner's not going to have those kind of cutters, so I use the basic ones. If it's a kid who's starting out modelling, his old man's probably got some wire cutters like that in the shed. So we can go and grab them and use them. I'm doing the next video with an angle grinder and a nail gun.
It'll look like I built it then.
A very bizarre question. Malcolm would like to know, what is the name of your carpet monster?
What, sorry?
That's what I thought when I just read it. Malcolm would like to know the name of your carpet monster.
That could be misconstrued in many, many ways. I don't
know what you mean.
I purposely fitted hard flooring in this room with a view to avoiding such a thing, but it didn't work, and things tend to hit a hard floor and then bounce further. Yeah. And you need a sense of hearing like Daredevil to figure out where they went. And I've not really got a name for it. Well, not one that I would be happy to say in the middle of a podcast, but it's uttered with many expletives, and
you can say it and I will bleep it out if it's bad.
I tend to just end up, my eyesight's not the best either, to be totally honest with you. Short range, I'm okay, but I have to wear glasses to drive or watch TV. As soon as a part hits the deck, it's like I've been pepper sprayed. They're fumbling around on the floor. I'm kind of trying to find it out with Braille. And eventually I usually do find it, but there are one or two bits that are gone forever, usually photo etch.
Lino monster or a hardwood flooring monster?
The cheapest flooring they did in IKEA monster.
Gotcha. Well, it's interesting actually because I have a shag pile rug. Yeah, I can see where this could go. I have a shag pile.
Is it heart-shaped by any chance?
No, it's a strip.
So you've basically got a Brazilian for your modelling room.
No, you've got the Brazilian because you've got nothing there at all.
I'm not going into this. I'm the Airfix bloke, for God's sake.
You got to use the tools that are available to you, and if you have a carpet down there, then it'll catch your bits.
Yeah, it's definitely something I would not recommend to somebody setting up a modelling room, is to have hard flooring. It seems like such a great idea. One sweep of the brush and there is, 3/4 of a dragon kit just returning back to their proper home. But the truth is, you never find anything.
Because I have that shag pile rug underneath me, anything I drops right on there and doesn't go any further because it gets encapsulated in the fibres.
Do you not find yourself then pouring through the shag pile like a mother chimp grooming the young? Looking for that little grab handle that you dropped 10 minutes ago.
Yes, I do actually. But I find if I lift it up and just shake it, half the dragon kit will fall out.
Yeah.
So but it stops it glissading across the floor, like a curling champion, like you're saying.
I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you drop something and then you push the chair back and then you hear the dreaded grind sound. Mm-hmm. And that's hard flooring for you. Not going to happen again.
So you drop something, you just don't move.
Yeah, it's literally like freeze on the spot, and then you have to check the insides of your trainers. You check your lap, you check your sleeves, and then it doesn't matter. It's still gone. Get the forensic suit on.
It is quite funny because I generally start with the first roll of fat and then go to the second roll of fat, by which I then got to my lap, and then I start going through my tracksuit bottoms, then maybe my socks. And then at that point, I might think about moving, although I'm on a swivel chair, and I hope to be able to move the swivel chair sufficiently enough for me to step away from where I am. Yeah. But I never ever do that because I'm too far underneath the desk, so I get caught halfway. So it's a little bit like someone escaping out of a car window that's half shut, trying to get out of my seat to find that one bit that I just stand on straight away. So, yeah.
It seems to attract people to your modelling room as well as soon as something hits the floor.
Oh, don't do that.
They always, while you're doing that, not while you were putting something together really well. They come in when you're on the floor, like you've suffered a fall and you can't get up.
Dad's fallen again.
Yeah, just rescued an elderly relative.
He's jabbering about grab handles or something. I think
euthanasia seems like a good option at that point, but I've not got a name for it, unfortunately. I hate to break your heart with that one.
I noticed in your videos you've got armor, you've got aircraft, you've got cars that we just talked about, got some Warhammer in there, weathering up the Warhammer guys. You've also got some railway stuff as well that you've done. Whereabouts do you think yourself in the hobby?
Basically, to me, pretty much 1/35th armor. I don't know. Okay. I don't know why that is, but that seems to just be the thing for me. It's big enough that you can, really do some detail on it, but it's not so big that you can't have quite big subjects as well. That was what I got back into modelling with, so I've stayed with it. Where I started, one of my very early memories from when I was about 4 or 5 was helping in the loosest sense of the word. My dad stick some parts together on this model boat that he had. He wasn't a modeller, he was just trying his hand at it in the depths of the 80s. I remembered that forever. I ended up doing Warhammer when I was in my awkward teens, before it was as widely accepted as it is now. That was the gateway drug. I did that for a few years, and then when I reached sort of my 20s, I stopped altogether. Purely out of curiosity, one day I just started Googling World War II dioramas, and I discovered Armorama.
Oh, okay.
And I viewed the entire gallery on that website, absolutely not while I was at work.
Of course.
And,
Of course.
and that triggered an interest. And for some random reason, I ordered a Dragon SDKFZ 2517, the Pioneer version.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered that. I tried to start modelling with a Dragon kit,
Wow.
which was a very, very poor choice. I tried going in at the deep end. Now, I didn't do my apprenticeship, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that didn't get finished.
Have you still got it, John?
No, that went in the bin. Not straight away. I kind of pretended like I could salvage it for 10 years or so, and then it went in the bin. But then I actually took a step back, and I met some guys on Armorama who were a big help to me and were part of the reason why I started trying to help other people. They got me started with proper techniques and tools and whatnot, and I ended up building the Italeri Sherman M4A176W. It was a £10 kit at the time. It's an awful kit. It's really bad. And I finished it. It was the first kit I ever finished. And that was it. I was hooked. Yeah. It's not, I say it's an awful kit. It's an awful kit by sort of modern kit standards, but for a tenner at the time, you couldn't really go wrong. Details completely wrong on it, but it builds all right, and it built okay for me, and it got me into the hobby.
Do you enjoy getting the finished thing in your hands? Right? Does that give you the excitement and the enjoyment, or is it the building process leading up to that point? Where is the fun bit for you?
If it was the finished thing, we wouldn't be sat here having this conversation, because you would have never heard of me. I never finish. 9 out of 10 kits that I start, I don't finish. I will typically get the video out of it and then park it and move on to the next one for a video. But before I got back into making for Airfix, I meant a little bit of push for my channel, and I finished the King Tiger, and I finished Hitachi Excavator from Hasegawa. And I made a push to actually finish some models, and that was because I have still got in various boxes around me now half-built models that I did a video on and then just put them away, to the point where I can even the Panzer IV from the old color modulation video on my channel, and it's exactly as it was in that last shot of the video. just straight back in a box, never touched it again. So for me, it's 100% the actual process. The end result is typically never realized for me, but it's the irrelevant part, really. It's nice to look at, but for me, it's definitely about the journey and what video I can make out of that journey as well, to be fair, to try and feed the channel.
Yeah. We all talked about the journey before, haven't we, James? Quite a bit.
We all prefer certain parts of the journey. Certainly people out there, they just like putting the models together and that's it. Don't even paint it. A little bit like me, who's quite nice now because I've got several parked as well.
I've got dozens. I'm literally sat within a meter of at least 20 unfinished kits, and I'm not even ashamed of that. How about that? I'm so brazen about it. I'm not even bothered. They're just everywhere.
It's just part of the hobby, isn't it?
That's the bit that I enjoy. I actually enjoy building a lot more than I ever thought I would. Weathering was always number one. I tend to rush the painting stage a little bit because of it. And I might, start the weathering before I've finished even the painting properly.
I do that too.
And it's an awful habit.
Have you ever put the weathering on before you've put the decals on before?
That's one of the best things about armour, is usually there's about 4 decals. So I can get away with that one. I have had to buy dry transfers in the past to actually, put them on. Because of the weathering, you can't really put water-based ones on over the top of how much oil I was using at the time. Right. So dry transferred over them, and I've got stencils and things to do that. They've just got me out of trouble in the past through being impetuous. My biggest crime in that area is one side of the model I will paint better than the other.
Oh my God, I love you, John. How long have I been saying that for?
About 2 years.
Yeah.
That good side is the one where you paint the other one and you're not as impressed with it. And then while that's drying, just quickly bang a quick panel line wash on there. I bet it looked really good. Next thing you know, you're sort of 4 oil layers deep on one side of the model and you can't remember what colours you used. So when you come to the other side, you've got a bit of an imbalance there. I've done that many times.
And that's the side that you point towards the audience when you go to a model show, right?
There's only one side of the model visible on camera at any one point.
So talking about sides and painting that, just out of curiosity, are you a paint underneath the armour sort of guy, or you just leave it bare?
100%, yeah. Paint the underneath, always.
See, Malcolm, what have I been telling you?
This is something that I try and tell people. If you don't paint the underside and follow every other step, you've got nowhere to experiment with the stuff that's on the actual kit. So if you want to try something new and you don't know how it will react to the paint, you've got something which is in exactly the same state as the rest of the model. If I look underneath my kits, every single one of my kit has got all sorts of failed experiments on it.
It's like a paint mule then, almost. It's like a palette.
Yeah, a little paint mule. But the key thing is you've done it in exactly the same sequence as the rest of the kit. So if there's something underneath that top layer which will react, you paint a mule separately. Yeah. There are different layers in operation on that particular kit. This is the same as your model. It's free space to practice. It's free space to experiment.
That's a good point. Yes. So you don't actually make the bottom of your tank look like the bottom of the tank. So you don't really paint it.
I feel
Malcolm,
like
he paints it. He paints it, Malcolm.
Yeah, you paint on it.
I feel like I'm being manipulated here for political reasons. I've never done that other than under wheel arches or similar. I don't display models in such a way as somebody's going to stick a dental mirror under there, i.e. a judge. So I've got no need to do that. I use it purely for experimenting.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's a good tip, actually. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I really like that. Heard it here first. No, I really like that tip. I've never heard that before. So actually I might start priming and painting them, because then like a little palette, paint mule
little plastic thing.
Plastic. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So you talked about having the good side of the model going towards the camera, and I was saying that I would do it so that I would face the audience at a model show. Do you go to any model shows or belong to any model clubs?
I go to Telford every year. I used to go to some of the other local ones, but they actually died off. There was a great one really close, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a 20-minute drive away at a school, and I loved that one because it was so close to home. And that one got stopped. And I've been known to go as far afield as Hinckley, which is not that far afield at all. But Telford, I live, close to Telford, so I'm lucky enough to have the best show once a year within easy reach.
Cool. So do you have a spare room?
Oh, you know what? No, sad. I've got these 2 kids living with me that use up all the rooms.
Do you go down to the MCC down Hinckley? The Backman shop down there. It's called MCC.
I've never stepped foot in a dedicated model train shop, to be honest. It's not part of the hobby that I've done it professionally, if you like, for video work, but I've never pursued model trains. I have actually got a train set. It was my dad's. He wanted to build a layout, but he passed away before he had the chance. But I'd occasionally put it together and run it for the kids. It's a really fascinating hobby, and the possibilities in trains are huge for weathering and doing lots of different ground effects, etc. But there's such an investment of time and effort and space as well that I couldn't see myself ever getting into it. And then when you've finished it all, you just turn it on and the trains go around. And to be honest, I don't really derive any pleasure from that particular aspect. It's like scale electric. I've never been into that either.
Right, right.
It's strange, isn't it? Because we've touched upon it a couple of times. Sorting out the layout and the groundwork and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Lots of skills involved, but the finished piece, not for me either.
I've been to a show. I needed evergreen specifically, and I clocked that there was this little train show coming up the weekend at this local school. And I went to that, and some of the things you see, labour of love, like truly magnificent. People building whole working locomotives out of like photo etched brass. You see some magnificent things there. I've never been into trains. I don't find them a particularly fascinating mode of transport. Not when you can have something that's got armor on it and a massive gun. And why would you have that when you could have like a fighter jet?
Well, that's another question that I have. Were you a vehicle enthusiast or a modeler first?
Yeah, I love the Sherman. Not until I actually got into modelling. Before that, the only real vehicle that I was interested in was the Vulcan. And anybody who's ever heard that noise is interested in the Vulcan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never built a Vulcan, interestingly enough. I've considered it, I've toyed with the idea, but I tend to be quite crap at building planes, if I'm honest. Not a good aircraft modeler, in my opinion, at all. Right. I've managed to do one decent one, which was the Tamiya Spitfire, the new one, the Mark 1.
Yeah, good kit.
Managed to do that without there being a seam up the middle, but that seam is the one thing that I hate that bit.
Because it's right at the front as well than the top.
If you're going to find a seam anywhere, it's that one right under the canopy. And there's a lot to aircraft modelling. I think when you see a really well done aircraft, you can appreciate it when you know what's gone into that and how well it's been done. I've set myself some little like bucket list things. Sort of going back to what you said about, was there a vehicle that you've always wanted to build? I wanted to build a mid-production Sherman, the sort of Sherman that was in Operation Cobra. I got that out of the way. There wasn't a good kit of that model at the time, and Tasker released a new Sherman. They're now a Suka, and they released this new early production Sherman, and I converted it. They now do the mid-production as a kit. I've got one on the shelf. I've done a Panther and a Tiger, which I think everybody should do at some point. Not to fanboy it, but because they are really good to work on. And they're big, they've got slab sides, they've got interesting things to weather. But I always wanted to do a decent Spitfire. I wanted to do a Lancaster and an F-14.
Okay, yeah, nice choices.
I bought the Edward Danger Zone, which
big kit.
It's about 12 inches away from me, and it's never been touched. I am a vehicle enthusiast when it comes to tanks. I'm absolutely tank mad. I've done all sorts relating to tanks, and I've been to Bovington many times.
Do you go to their model show that they do?
No, not to the model show. I like to go when it's really quiet, and I like to just mooch in amongst the tanks. I've had the tank experience as well. I got to ride in the commander's hatch of the Sherman that I believe it was the Sherman they used for Fury.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt would be absolutely thrilled if he knew that I'd been in there with him. The best part about that was that you got to go around the warehouses at the back. That smell, that armour smell. I was absolutely ecstatic to be in there. And they got some really weird stuff as well. There was a roller Panzer IV track, there was a radial engine out of Sherman. They'd got a Panzer I on the restoration garage, just sanded off all the paint and found the original markings underneath.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
That was awesome. That was a good while ago now. I was a lot thinner. I've got some pictures of me like in a Panzer IV, and I look back and think, oh, wow, I'd get wedged straight in that hatch now if I tried that. I'd be like a cork.
You were talking about the Lancaster. I noted that you didn't mention you got a kit, so you haven't got one of those in the stash? Yeah,
there's one over there in primer. It's been there for about 4 years. It's the Dam Busters one, and it's got a really nicely applied layer of black Steinel Res UMP primer on it, and then all of a sudden just stopped doing it, and it's sat there ever since. I don't think it's broken, which is a start. And one day I'll just suddenly get really enthused by Lancasters and I'll finish it one day. But that's a really good kit. That is. I enjoyed building that. I absolutely binged it from start to primer. Bit of filling to do along that dreaded seam up the middle, but it's probably shrunk now, that filler, to be fair. I don't want to turn it over and have a look. Ghost seam all up the middle, but that was a good build, that was. I really enjoyed that. If I'd bought a mask set for the glass, I would have probably gone a little bit further with it.
Yeah, well, I think you'd need one, wouldn't you, for the Lancaster?
No, you just use lots and lots of tiny little pieces of tape, and then you put it on the shelf and never touch it again because you got sick of sticking loads of tiny bits of tape on it. I've seen some pictures of that kit finished. It builds up beautifully. It's really nice.
Mm.
And I did that. That's been about 3-4 years ago now. So no affiliation at the time with Airfix. Just bought it purely on a whim because I wanted to build a Lancaster. I will look at that and sort of chastise myself for not finishing that. And I'm totally brazen about the fact that I don't finish stuff. One day it bothers me, the next day it doesn't.
Do you feel like you need it to give it the service or something, or you need to respect it by finishing it?
Yeah, it's a bit like that Danger Zone from Edward. It's got good resale value because you can't get it anymore. The minute I put cutters to sprue, that drops in value.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere is absolutely dying for that kit. They'd love that kit. And they would do it such justice. And then you got me, who's a part-time aircraft modeler, who's going to open it, diddle with it for a bit, and then it's going to go back in the box with filler on show for 2-3 years. I'd rather they did it, and I just didn't. So it sits in the box and does nothing. I do that a lot. That's why I've got a big stash of model kits around me.
How do you motivate yourself then to do the videos then? Because if you get to the point where you have to finish it, obviously you've got to finish your video series. So how does that work?
Scale Model Medic channel has suffered due to that really, really badly. If you look at my upload history, and if you look at some of the comments as well, people will say, you should upload more. And yeah, I should. And I always should have, and I just never have, which is why my channel fell behind all of the others when actually there weren't that many people doing it at all when I started. They took off in a big way and I didn't because they were uploading all the time. I was obviously working for Humbrol after a few years anyway, so I stopped working on my channel anyway. And then a few years back, I just got back into uploading on the channel, did a few videos, and then there's always something that comes up and gets in the way. And I work full-time, proper job. I'm not a professional modeler. So that is always going to come first. And then I stop again. So motivation has always been a problem. And there are days where, you just sit at the bench and I just think, I'm not in the mood for modeling today. I've always found that when you're trying to force yourself to do that, you don't do your best work. And I've learned to come to terms with who I am and how I work. One day I will be into something totally and I will be Googling it and reading about it and I'll be absolutely mad about that subject. And then I'll stand up and I'll turn the lamps off to go back in the house, and then I'll turn around and I'll just catch a little glimpse of something out the corner of my eye. And that will trigger an interest in that subject instead. And I think, I should really work on that. And then that's it. It's like a big carousel of what I'm interested in at the time. And I've just learned to accept that and just ride it and just work on what you're enjoying at the time. The only difference is obviously when you're doing what like I do with Airfix, then it's different, then it's work. And that changes everything completely. It's not about motivation. It's just about trying to be a professional provider of something. Like if somebody hired you to cut the grass, if you care enough, about your reputation, you'll cut the grass and you'll get it done pronto. You won't sit there and say, I'm not going to cut the grass today because it's really not something that interests me. I'll do it tomorrow. Motivates you that way.
I find that with certainly doing videos and stuff, it's so difficult. You put yourself under that sort of pressure, and then you get frustrated because you're not doing it how you think it should be done to the level in which you want to achieve. And then that has a slippery slope at that point, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I had to get out of that early on, doing weathering videos for Humbrol. Dale was the head of marketing at Humbrol at the time. What is useful is a simple video on enamel washes because people need to know how to use them.
Yeah.
You buy this stuff, you take it out the pot. It's a very thick, pigment-heavy mixture. It doesn't flow along the panel lines. You need to put thinner in it, but they don't know that. I need you to teach them to do that bit, not go off on your own little enjoyment trip using those washes to, do different effects on a Tiger or do oil staining on the underside of an aircraft. I need you to just do a basic, and it got me out of that early on. Just switch into that mode and build the model. It's very different to modeling for yourself. It's a privilege to be able to do it, a massive privilege. If I turned around today and said, look, I'm really not enjoying this, and then knocked it on the head, there would be no end of people queuing up to take my place. And that in itself is a motivational factor. There aren't many people who get to do this, and far better modelers than me who jump at the chance. So I try to be as good at it as I can, try to put aside what I'm interested in as a modeler and try to put myself into the right mindset to see what would a beginner need to be able to do to put this thing together, and actually then move on and build another one after they'd finished, to enjoy it to the point where they're like, I enjoy this hobby. So motivation for my own hobby is difficult, but motivation when I'm working is not so much.
A different mindset between hobby and work, and mixing those two is just a difficult thing. They don't mix, do they? They don't mix.
No, not at all. I'm not going to say it's detrimental to your own hobby to work in the hobby. I don't think it's detrimental to be doing, getting better at the basics all the time. And I think that's really done me a world of good to be able to confidently just know how to carry out the basic tasks and never lose that touch with that area of the hobby. It's just sort of, when you've been working all night, filming all night, and the amount of pressure that's on you to do it perfectly all the time, you're not going to then put that down and just turn around and there's a massive kit that you've been working on for yourself, and you're just going to carry on working on that. Stop modeling. That was a hard shift. Turn around. It's time for some modeling. It doesn't work that way. I recently posted on Facebook some pictures of a T-64 that I've been working on for a long time.
Yeah, is that the one with all the explosive armor on it, or reactive armor?
Yeah. And there are more parts in the Commander's machine gun than there are in the entire Airfix starter set.
Madness.
And it's enjoyable in a different way, but I wouldn't want to spend 3 hours filming a starter set video and then turn around and try and build that. It just wouldn't, I had to wait for downtime between videos, or for, time when I had time off work or whatever, and I had more free time. Because I'm a dad at the end of the day. I don't get enough free time to do the work side and my own. It becomes a juggling act, and the one thing that consistently loses out is my own channel. Other than the interaction with people who message me to thank me or post in the comments, I don't get anything from that. It's demonetized. It's just there. It doesn't benefit me to upload to it. So that will take a back seat until such a time as I've got something that's worth filming and I can do a video that's got a bit of impact.
There's no rush on doing that. It's not going to go anywhere. Just like the kits on your shelf, they're not going to go anywhere. There's no rush at all in this hobby. If it takes you 10 years to finish a kit, then it does. We were joking on one of the last podcasts talking about if you bought a kit in 1986 and then you started working on it in 2020, it doesn't matter.
I enjoyed listening to that because I got to work behind the Airfix stand for 2 years at Telford, and I got to see the hobby from the other side of the table for the first time on a manufacturer's stand as well. It totally changed my entire view of the hobby. I now view it with a much higher degree of sympathy for the manufacturer than I ever did before.
Done the same to me when I visited Airfix. It really opened my eyes. We talk about Airfix because obviously you've worked with them, etc. But Airfix do get quite a hard time with the way they do their business. Comments of, they're just popping the same old 1960s kits and blah, blah, blah. But hey, I got news for you. That all the manufacturers do that, and they've been doing it for years. But Airfix is the one that seems to always get the heavy stick for it.
Yeah, they do. And not everybody has that same view of Airfix and has humanised it by meeting the people. I've only ever been down there once when me and Dale first got started, and he invited me down. A hell of a drive from here. I had a Peugeot 406 at the time, and it wasn't a comfortable ride down there, but it was the first time that I'd ever really been to anything which gave me an insight into what's on the other side of the tape. The bit that I came away with was just how into it they all were, just how passionate and excitable, and they're more interested and passionate about it than I am. And it's like, well, fair play, really. You speak to them, and they're not modelers. A lot of them aren't modelers. They're just people who are mega into their work, and you have a conversation, and they're dead passionate.
I didn't make notes as to who made models, but it was very few, really. But the passion they had for delivering the product and the research and the subject matter, and Dale, obviously, with the marketing side of things, his passion's enormous. He's unquantifiable, really.
Brooke, her mum had worked in the same factory long time ago. So her having a job at Airfix was just family. It was generational, Yeah. So that doesn't come through when you're talking about Airfix and things unless you've been there and worked with the people.
It's definitely something that you're not going to convey. Probably somebody listening and they're thinking, yeah, whatever. You're not going to convince people who've got that mindset. So I just don't. If you don't like Airfix, if you're not into Airfix, then there are so many other people making model kits right now. Then just go make one of theirs instead. That kind of attitude has put me off quite a few online communities and groups in the past. Mm-hmm. And then I've sort of shied away from posting there because I don't like this kind of vibe. But Airfix, like you say, it does seem like in particular Airfix do catch that bad rap. But when I worked at Telford on that other side of that stand, that also gave me an insight into just how absolutely different the hobby is for every single person.
Everyone has got an opinion, everyone has a favourite thing, and everyone has a different reason to why they're in the hobby and why their favourite thing is a different favourite thing to somebody else. You're trying to cater for a broad range of people. We talked about FAQs. What were the big questions that you had when you were behind the stand then?
At the time, it was about clear, because it was just after Future disappeared. The see-through bottle with the blue cap, that disappeared, and there was a hole in the market for a very thin self-leveling gloss varnish. And Dale saw the opening and took it, and there was a replacement for clear out on the market. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago here, 10, 11 years ago. So now there's loads, and everybody wants to use this very specific type of clear that they're best with. But at the time, there were a lot of questions about that, because that stuff was ingrained into people, especially the older boys. They loved dipping canopies in that stuff. And there was a bit of an issue where if you let moisture get trapped under it, it would fog. There's a really easy solution to it, and I'd answered a lot of questions about that. All you do is just heat it up. I don't know why, but it just lets the moisture get from underneath the varnish. I could probably make up some pseudoscience for you if you want. The heat excites the particles in the polymer and allows the moisture underneath to pass through, freeing the trapped moisture.
Expands the air trapped in there that's causing that light bouncing around, gives you that cloudiness so that it just escapes.
I see you too are a scientist.
Yes, I am a scientist.
I feel so silly right now.
But all you do is heat it up and it goes away. And I answered that question a lot. I do remember some very specific moments. Some guy came up to me and said, when are you guys going to start making a decent green for the interior of Russian helicopters? I just thought, how specific can you get? How much of an encyclopedia of all things modelling do you have to be to sit this side of this table? And then he goes away, muttering under his breath, because I've not got an answer for him. And then the next guy steps up and he's like, I want to weather science fiction. And I'm like, well, what science fiction? And he did say the name, but it was one of them sort of 70s sci-fi shows. The older guys like the battered old kits that you get in some of the more esoteric stands at Telford. I've never even heard of it, let alone weathered the models that you can get for it. And you just have to improvise and try and give him something to go with and hopefully try out. But he looked about as impressed as if I just stood on his model. So he went away and dissatisfied. But it was, I got to work with Adam Tooby for 2 days. He was on the stand as well. He does the box art for the modern Airfix kits, and Adam and his wife are amazing people. They helped me out a little bit with dealing with the general public because I was.
Did they hold you back? One on each side.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, what advice did they say to you dealing with the public? Was it just smile and wave, or?
I can't remember specifically. It was just just knowing that it's not just me who gets it. Model show crowds, we all go there hyped up, we're totally into the hobby, and you just have to sort of deflect and diffuse until you can get someone around who might know and might be able to help, or you have to just take a beating sometimes if they want to get something off their chest.
Yes.
Adam obviously sells prints of his art. He's not going to get somebody coming by being massively critical of it because it's really good. People can be rude at model shows. People can be rude anywhere, but when you concentrate modelers in one area, they do sort of float to the top, and they can be quite abrupt. But then for every one person who's like that, there's 100 really great guys, and I can't possibly remember all of the positive interactions, but I remember somebody coming up to the stand who brought with them an example of the fogging clear. I said fogging, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
I was just about to bleep it.
He brought the example, and you could tell he was kind of irate. And after a bit of a conversation with him, he went away really happy knowing what to do. Because I still use clear to this day, even though there are people who despise it. I still use that because it's like easy to use. It serves many purposes. I don't gloss whole models with it because I try not to gloss whole models at all if I can help it. That was a really positive interaction because somebody came with a problem and went away with a solution. That's kind of the whole point. But I actually did a live demonstration for the first time at that Telford, straight in at the deep end. One of those where they announce it over the tannoy. First day, I forgot my heat gun for flash drying the models. So literally, absolutely stymied. I couldn't do anything. I had to make people watch paint dry. They went away from that very disappointed. I went home that night so determined, and I cut up styrene and primed it, and then I cut some others, primed it and painted it different base colours. I made sure my heat gun was in my bag, and the second day I did another demonstration, and it was perfect. I jumped through all the hoops, got everything dry, and they even gave me a little clap at the end, and then they went away. And it was that good. The next year, when we did Telford again, Dale didn't want a live demo doing. He just dropped that bit of the act, like, let's not go down there again.
No, I couldn't do it. No way.
It's people's eyes just drill into you as they stare at you, and you can kind of read their mind. All right, model man, entertain me. One of the main influencers who affected me was doing a demonstration at that exact desk at the first Telford that I ever went to. There's a guy called Jay Laverty,
right,
and showing people how to airbrush, and he was using enamel paints from White Henson.
Wow.
And he dispelled a load of myths about airbrushing, and he made it look so easy, and he was such a big character. I'm not close personal friends with him at all. I've never really spoke to him in that context, but I've never forgotten his name, and I keep my eye on his Facebook page from time to time. But he made me go straight to a stand, buy White Henson enamels, and I painted a dragon Nashorn with them and airbrushed it successfully because of what I saw that guy do. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I took to airbrushing after seeing that and then went on to do that myself.
It's interesting because right next to me here, I have my little oil wash that I made just after watching your video about making oil washes for the Millennium Falcon. I have the bottle of it here, and I also have the model itself that I actually made following your video. So it's gone full circle, John.
One day, show somebody else how to make an oil wash, and it's like a big circle of life.
One day someone will come up to me and say, you really influenced me to never listen to podcasts ever again.
But I'll never forget that guy. He did a really good demo on airbrushing, and I absolutely loved it. I made my missus stand there watching probably about 45 minutes. She didn't love it, but, shouldn't come to model shows, should you?
Wow, I would have loved to see that airbrushing enamels. That used to be my go-to paint, enamels. And it was only by watching videos and influencers, this magical airbrushy thing, and listening to the comment from many people of enamels they can't do nothing with them, which made me venture down the road of acrylics, as we talked about many times before. But now, I really must do that. I really must get some enamels and play, because
you keep dreaming about it. You keep talking about doing your.
I do,
paint.
yeah, I do. I just need someone to show me how to do it. I think
they'll come back into fashion, just like everything else.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's something that I've noticed about this hobby as well. Is stuff comes and stuff goes.
Mm-hmm.
One minute it's absolutely essential that you use this, that, or the other, and then the next minute it's falling out of favour, and you should be using something else. Most recent example I can think of, everyone was using Stynal Res, and then everybody moved to Mr. Surfacer.
Yeah,
but Mr. Surfacer has been around since I started modelling. It just wasn't trendy to use it back then, and now it is.
Yeah,
because you've got Mr. Leveling Thinner and Tamiya lacquer thinner with retarder, which makes it smooth out a little bit better. One day, somebody who's very influential will say, I'm not going to use that today, I'm going to use enamels, and then enamels will just come back into fashion, and everyone will have a reason why they're so much better.
It does. Cycles, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about the Hitachi excavator, if I can.
Yeah, sure.
I'll put the link to it on the podcast notes, but there's the video of you weathering the excavator, which I've got a thing for tractors, I'll admit it now. It's like armor, but without the guns, I guess. You can muddy them up, you can mess them up, you can rust them up as much as you can, and they're vehicles you'd see every day. I think that's why I wasn't ever really into armor myself, because I never really saw a tank. We see a tank going over the hedge, unless you're in the wrong part of the world. Kind of farm machinery is where it's at for me. So, but when I saw your Hitachi one, I was salivating when I was rewatching it today. There's a bit in there where you're doing the hydraulic levers, and you put up a picture of the actual thing in the corner of the video, and then you start painting the weathering on as it matches. And my question really is about references. Do you always try and follow a reference when you're working, or do you kind of do it from memory? Because you certainly did it from reference in that particular video, John.
Yeah, always reference. Always. It's kind of the way I was brought into the hobby, to do it that way. I will scour the internet for references. I've got a pretty decent library of books, so if it's a military subject, I might have something here. But that particular model, the Hitachi Zaxxas excavator, you're not going to turn up much Googling that. What I found the best source of information was to go looking for them for sale, like the Auto Trader of excavators, and you find them for sale in random countries where the upkeep isn't as good as it might be here. And that's where you find all your weathering pictures.
Oh, that's a really good tip.
Got them saved somewhere, just picture after picture after picture of these things. Interestingly enough, they all weathered slightly differently.
Oh.
It was just a case of finding one that I like the look of. And I found one with poor upkeep on the hydraulic seals, let a bit of oil out. And then I'd find a different picture of one on the cabin where there were some scratches that I like the look of. And then you find one where they haven't cleaned the inside out before they took the pictures. It tells you where all the dirt goes. And you just piece it together from there. I kicked myself about that because I kind of rushed the weathering to finish it because I really wanted to get a part 2. Yeah, the weathering was enjoyable on that. It was just very difficult with all that glass on the cabin.
I think you did a great job. I mean, especially when you masked up where the windscreen wiper goes. I did that exact technique on a tractor that I built. Yeah, I think it was great.
Yeah, that's an old one, that is. Old hat.
I hadn't seen it before.
I think what drives me with reference, I'm from the forum generation, pre-Facebook, pre-YouTube, and I've been lucky enough to have come through the likes of Missing Links in an era when people like Mig, Adam Wilder, Mike Rinaldi, they're actually posting on these forums themselves. then you've got people posting some of the best historical pictures I've ever seen back in Missing Links in those days. Just off the top of my head, I can remember there's a very famous tank engagement in Cologne where Shermans are getting knocked out by a panther, and then something knocks the panther out. This guy posted not only that, but he posted pictures from the engagement of the tanks afterwards and everything else. Research that, is priceless, really, when you're just looking for information. And that was what Missing Links was like back then. And I think that coming from that era, everybody was working from reference. Realism was really important to people. You only just had these sort of artistic styles of modelling emerging, so realism was where it was at. I've always enjoyed that realism element. Plus also references and things like the Hitachi. I sit on the M6 sometimes for a long time. You see all sorts of weather and inspiration when you sat for 40 minutes trying to get past Junction 6. So I'll be sort of struck with inspiration when you see a certain part of a vehicle. I think, that'd be a really cool effect to do. And you've got plenty of time to look at it.
I've asked my wife a couple of times to speed up so that I can catch a tractor that's on the back of a truck.
Unfortunately, I've even seen a lorry with the bucket hanging off the back, which from my sort of era on the forums, everybody used to put a bucket on the back of German armour. Every Panther and Tiger model you saw used to have the bucket hanging off the back, and I saw a bucket hanging off the back of a lorry, and I was like, geez, that's where I'm from with the influences on me, and that starts with realism back then.
And the enjoyment of putting that realism together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. If you can pull it off, the amount of times I've tried to achieve something and it's not gone the way I wanted to, that's the learning curve.
That's the fun bit, trying to work out how to do it. I've got a couple of other questions for you. What's the worst modelling accident or damaged body part? I've
been fairly good in terms of damage. I've had a few deep cuts that really hurt on the fingertips. That stops you from modelling for a while. The worst of those is from the, is it JRC, the razor saw?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very, very thin, flexible blades. They cut skin real well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll open you up. That's caught me a few times. When I was a poor and struggling young Warhammer enthusiast, I found a tin of yacht varnish in my dad's garage.
Yacht varnish?
Yeah.
Specifically for yachts?
It's specifically for the nautical vessels or my Warhammer miniatures. I think yacht varnish is sort of like a product now. It started as a yacht varnish, but now you can use it for things that aren't yachts. Thought I'd try it out, and I put a coat on a couple of little Plague Marines. They went glossy, it dried really well. I was like, actually, that looks pretty cool. And then I promptly dropped the entire tin on me and on the floor in my bedroom. And that wasn't good. It absolutely stinks. The jeans I was wearing could stand up on their own when they were successfully removed.
Shiny though.
Yeah.
That's some serious damage that you've obviously done.
You only do it once.
Yeah, and then you buy something that's going to stop it happening, or you're just very, very careful again.
Buy a proper gloss varnish for models that comes in the model size tin.
Yeah. Blimey, the fumes coming off that yacht varnish must have been horrendous.
What do you see yourself doing in the next couple of years or so? What plans have you got coming up?
In terms of Airfix and Humbrol and that's a conversation that I'll have when the current commission's up. If there is stuff in the pipeline, then obviously I'll continue to dedicate myself to that. I have been toying with trying to get my own business started as well.
Is that model related?
It's laser engraving and CNC work.
Okay.
What about model kits that you've got on the go? Have you got anything, like you said about your danger zone, but is there anything on the bench you're waiting to go?
I've got that T64.
Yeah.
I think that would make a decent video.
Have you filmed some already?
No. I started building that before the whole situation in the Ukraine kicked off.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really want to start filming that with that going on. I felt it might be a little bit, tasteless, but I kind of got drawn back to it because they're winning now. It feels like it's okay to build it. And yeah, I will finish that off. It's a really good model. I like trumpeter armor kits anyway, but that's a really good one. And I've got the 1/16 Stug. I actually want to build that. I really, really like Stugs, and I've never built one before, even though I really like the whole sort of shape, the way they weather up. Because I got it when it was still fairly new, and I joined a Facebook group all about that sort of particular kit.
Yeah.
And they've unearthed all of the errors. David Parker has been making aftermarket bits for it to fill in these gaps. So it's made me hesitate to get started with it, because it's 1/16. You know, that's a commitment. You need to make sure you're in it for the long haul on that.
You need some space, but it looks like you've got the space there to be able to do that once you've cleared the decks.
It's the space to display it afterwards might be an issue. In all fairness, when you never finish anything, that's not really a concern, is it? You just put it back in the box it came in and then leave it there. But my colleagues actually bought me that for my 40th birthday at work.
Oh, wow, that's good.
Be kind of cool to put it on my desk.
Yeah.
Would make sense, yeah.
It'd have to have a glass case over the top, obviously, no touching. I'd be let off with putting that on the desk because they brought it me.
Yeah. I have a thing about kits that have been bought for me, building them, and then feeling an enormous sense of responsibility to start the kit and get it done. Kits that get bought for me just sit there because I'm so nervous about not doing it.
But you're right, it does put a little extra pressure on you in some respects. But I think that's a nice touch. I might suggest that to work, actually, with my birthday next year. Yeah, I wonder what they could get me.
Yeah, but maybe make it a thing. Get your work to buy you an extra model kit. And then you get to put it on your desk. And then you get to use their space to display your models.
Absolutely, that works.
You get to fend off all of your curious work colleagues who want to come and touch all of the work that you've done.
Oh, yeah.
Break off the bits for you.
Where can people find your stuff then?
If you just stick Scale Model Medic into YouTube, that's all you got to do, really. Or you can stick it in Facebook if you want to see that.
Okay, Scale Model Medic. We've been talking for quite some time now, so I think we should wrap it up. But Jon, thank you very much for taking the time to make the videos, because they are time consuming, and taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. Helping us talk about the hobby, teaching us things about the hobby on your videos.
No, it's been great to sit and chat with you. It's been really good. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, you're an inspiration. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Just Making Conversation with
James Skiffins
and Malcolm Childs.
Follow us on Facebook, where we post photos, updates, and other nonsense.
If the social media boy gets his act together. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all the others.
Let us know what you are just making and what your thoughts are on the conversation in this episode.
Thank you to the following supporters from buymeacoffee.com, JMC Podcast,
Dean, Mike Shelley, Ivana Build a Model Kit, Callum from Micro Machines Podcast, Paint All the Minis Peter, Brad Warren, Tim, Black Rifle, John Julian, Chuck, Mark Bakawahi, Simon the Jersey Gent, Steve Lee Costas, Mark Ray, Neil, Mike, Robert, Andrew, Drew, John, Mike, Jeff, Richard, Lynn, Gordon, and 6 others.
Well done. If you do show your support, leave your name so we can paint your name on the Roll of Honour on the tail of the next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.